know how you always see these gorgeous natural rind cheeses, like they're dark colored and kind of mahogany. They look like wood. I've always wanted to get those rinds and I've never really gotten there. So I was just reading recipes and they said that a lot of cheesemakers add a mold blend to their milk in order to get that. Just kind of like how you do B. linens or a geotrichum candidum. And I'm like, well, heck. So I bought a mold blend. I'm putting it in this cheese today because I want to see if we can get that kind of a rind. Boom! I didn't know. Why don't people tell you this stuff? I guess they do. You just have to dig and read, and I didn't know. Good morning. Welcome to Milk Slinger. My name is Jennifer. Today I am making a cheddar style cheese. It's loosely based on Caerphilly, which is a Welsh Cheddar type of cheese. My recipe today comes from Mastering Artisan Cheese Making. Okay, for the clabber culture, it's 1/4 cup per gallon of milk. I have 8 gallons, so it is 2 cups. It's all jiggly. You can see the cream on the top and the milk underneath. If you tip it, you can see how solid it is. That's how thick the clabber gets. I need to save a little bit for tomorrow's clabber. And then this just gets shaken up really well and added to the milk. Give it a brief stir. I'm not worrying about stirring it in too much right now because I'm going to be adding more cultures. For 8 gallons, it's 1/8 teaspoon. These mold blends are expensive, like 30 bucks for that, but it should last a long time and it stores in the freezer. I'm gonna give it 2 minutes to rehydrate and then I'll come back and stir it in. I have not even temped this milk yet. I know that when milk comes in from the cow, it's about 93 degrees. I also added 1 gallon of refrigerated whole milk from yesterday. So it's probably right around 88 or 90 degrees. They say this can culture for like 45 to 90 minutes. I decided to go 60 right in the middle. It is 1 teaspoon per 8 gallons of milk, or 1/8 teaspoon per gallon of milk. Dilute it with a little bit of cool tap water. Your water should not be chlorinated. I have a whole document that you can download. It shows the little pieces of information, things that I just don't list every time because it just gets cumbersome. Go to milkslinger.com and print that off. Get that freebie if you want. I have not yet temped my milk. I didn't feel like it. So many recipes are extremely specific about what the temperature is supposed to be, and with good reason. If you're going to be making a consistent cheese every single time, you need to have everything exactly the same every single time. However, I am a home cheese maker. I am trying to develop more of an intuitive nature of understanding how to make cheese well with a lot of different styles. See how it's so yellow right now? That is because the cream has risen to the top. What do you know? It's 86. It's right on target. Here's the rennet. You stir this in gently for no more than 45 seconds because it's going to start to set up and you don't want to break that set once it starts. If you are using store-bought milk, you need to be using calcium chloride. That's also in the freebie. Oh, I can see it's already slowing quite a bit. All right, we're going to give this 45 minutes and we'll come back and check on it. It's actually been a little bit longer than 45 minutes because I was writing and got distracted. That's beautiful. So now you cut these into 1/2-inch cubes. So I'm going to go ahead and start the clock for the next 15 minutes. I'm going to turn the heat on low, right around 84, 85-ish, so we just dropped a degree. I'm going to keep stirring it for the next 15 minutes and bring the temperature up to 93 degrees. It doesn't have to be exact though. You can mess around and do what you want. The curds are soft and juicy. They do not have a rind on them. They feel squidgy. They're not really knitting together at the bottom. They are floating as long as I keep stirring. There is a piece of dirt. If we would do a squeeze test right now, see how it's like spreading apart? It's kind of hard to push them. They kind of stay like that, but it's just not matting together. They're too loose. That will change in the next half hour or so. The curds feel like there's not much in here. They feel a little bit dry and pebbly. Let's do a squeeze test and see how they are. They're not escaping under my hands nearly as much as before, and they stay together better and crumble apart. These will get treated more through the cheddaring process. They get handled quite a bit, so a lot of the whey comes out later. I think they're still a little bit fragile because I wish they would adhere a little bit more right there. By the way, stirring cheese is a great time for reading. I'm reading about the Bang Bang Club, about the photographers who covered, some of the photographers who covered breakdown of apartheid in South Africa. The curds are feeling quite a bit drier. I'm still finding some big curds, but I'm just splitting them as they go. Yeah, I think that's good enough. So I'm going to let this sit for about 5 minutes and then we'll pour off the whey. Sweet, delicious, yum. Good. Now I want them to stay tilted on that side. This is the part about making cheddar that I hate the most. Most recipes, you're stirring the curds a lot, or putting the curds into a bag and hanging them, or taking them out of the pot and putting them into a cheesecloth lined colander and letting them drain. You slice, you stack, you do all these different things. That takes up so much space. It's such a mess. So this is where I've been trying to work at figuring out how can I cut out a lot of this and still get the same end result. This recipe calls for just leaving the curds in the pot, letting them drain and keeping them warm. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Let's do this. I have a little pie tin just stuck under here, just to raise it up a little bit more. The curds, when they were poured out, they were on that side and they're all still on that side. Already the whey is gathering around them. You want the curds to stay warm, same temperature, 94, 95 degrees. So for this next little while, I'm kind of gonna ignore them. Every now and then I'm gonna go in, pour off a little bit more whey, cut the curds in half at some point. I'll put the pieces on top of each other. I'll flip them, mush them around, stack them up sloppily, half-assed over this next hour. The curds are compressing, and they're acidifying. The goal is to get the pH down to 5.75. I don't have a pH meter. Some recipes have you acidifying for a long period of time and others are really short. I'm just gonna give it an hour, maybe 2 hours, however long I'm around and wanna do things. I am well aware that my kitchen is kind of messy. It's very lived in. But you know what? That's as it should be. If I made myself clean so that this was magazine worthy every time I filmed a video, I wouldn't be wanting to film. This is my reality. This is what my kitchen looks like, and it is perfectly serviceable. I made that decision way back in the beginning when I started this channel that I was not going to present something that isn't real. Those bits of dirt, those splashes, that's real. Pouring off a little bit of the whey. You want some of the whey still in here so it keeps it warm. Take the top one, it's melded together, peeling it apart. And if it rips wonky, don't worry about it. You can put this top one on the bottom and flip it, bottom one on the top and flip it. And let that go for another 20 minutes. You know, when I lift the lid off, I feel warm. I'm gonna cut this again because you get more weight, you stack it up higher. Let it keep setting. Not even bothering to take out the whey at this point. So at this point, lots of people like to mill it with their hands. You could tear it apart, but that is a hard action. Hurts my hands. Look at this texture. Look at how it's like, it tears like a chicken breast. It's like pulls, it's elastic. This is what you want. I have no idea what the pH is, but I'm pretty sure it's good enough. And these still feel warm. They're tangy and squeaky in your teeth. Now here's the interesting part. This Welsh cheddar gets salted 3 times. First time, we're gonna add 1% of the weight of the curds and mill it in. Partway through the pressing, we add another 1% of that weight on the outside and continue pressing. And then you brine the cheese. Take all the curds, weigh them, take that weight in grams times 0.01, and that will give you the grams of salt that you need to add to the curds. For me, it's 20 grams I'm gonna add now, 20 grams I'm gonna add when I'm pressing it. 20 grams. And then I'm going to measure that same amount again, set this aside to be added when I'm pressing it at some point. So if you think about it as being 1 tablespoon of salt per gallon of milk, this is one of the 8 tablespoons. Adding the salt to the curds during the milling and then during the pressing helps to release a bunch of the whey that is locked into the curds. I've had trouble with lower temperature mesophilic cheeses like the Boris being dry and just like it felt like they were just too acidic. Something was wrong with the curd. I wonder if salting it multiple times throughout will help to make a less acidic, smoother, better paste. I'm not going to worry about getting a smooth press on the top of this first time. It'll get flipped enough and it will work its way out. I'm just kind of locking that in there. One of y'all sent me this Dutch press. One of the main problems with doing cheddars is that the curds don't knit well. With this press, you can get hundreds of pounds of weight on a cheese. It is kind of like magic. My cheddars now have a really nice rind. At milkslinger.com, I have all my recommended products and I will link to his handmade presses there, and they are cheap. Compared to other presses, these things are a steal. You want to check it out. You pile on followers. You can adjust the height of this. This is just what works best for me. So you have so much leverage power with this. So you don't even need that much weight to get this down. The guy sent me this whole calculator thing that I can calculate how many pounds I need. I actually don't follow that. I just press it till it weeps, make sure it's not too much Milky Way, periodically add another quart of water as needed, make sure there's good pressure as I'm flipping it and the rind is closing. I'm not very scientific about it, and it seems to be working. Imagine that. I just take one of our 2-gallon buckets that we use for milk. So this is maybe not quite half a gallon of water. You hang it right here on this end. As I'm talking, it's sinking lower and lower, and it's soon going to rest on this. And at that point, I know I need to get more followers right there to raise it up. And there we are. We are just about touching. So now we got a taller one in. It's weeping very nicely, but not oozing too much. Oops. So now's where it says to put 20 grams of salt over the cheese. And I'm gonna close that up. You don't wanna get wrinkles in. So that's where mold will grow. Put salt down. A little bit more on because it was on the fabric and my hands and it splattered. It's like this. So probably almost a gallon.
Yeah.
You
Stinks.
do? It stinks. See how it's all like pebbled texture from the salt? That's a lot of pressure. I think that's probably close to 200 pounds. I don't know how much it's supposed to be. Hope it works. I've decided it's time to take this cheese out of the press. It could be in for another 12 hours. I could go another day, but I'm kind of done. This stinks. This smells like heavy cloying funk. The other cheese smelled the same way too, so it's not the Mycodore. It might be the cheesecloth. It might be just whatever it is. This has been sinking. You can see how it was compared to last night. It is down, getting lower and lower. So I know more whey is coming out. So a couple tablespoons. This has occasionally been making creaky noises today while I'm in here. This is brittle. It's like stiff because of the salt and well, because it was drying, I guess. It's been in so long. Look at that nice rind. It feels very hard, very firm, totally sealed. And it weighs 8 pounds, 5.6 ounces. The recipe says to brine this for 45 minutes per every 2 pounds. That is 3 hours for this cheese. I'm gonna go longer because I just think saltier cheeses are better and I do not undersalt my cheeses. Do I have a problem? Maybe. Do I also like how my cheeses turn out? Usually. I kept forgetting to get this out of the brine because I was doing a lot of other things. It got a lot more salted than the recipe says to. It's feeling perfectly much like a clammy handshake. So we're gonna go stick it down in the cave. I just brought it up from the basement in order to quickly clean it up a little bit. I'm gonna be using a dirty brush because I was just cleaning other cheeses and I'm not gonna bother to clean that. It is a little bit fabric-y feeling, dusty. Now on that side is a little bit pinkish. Since I rubbed it, that part is feeling kind of soft. There's nothing really on the sides. It's just stabilizing and actually feeling pretty good. Since making this, I have read that you can add Mycodore to the outside surface of the cheese when aging. And if I had done that, I expect that I would have had a better coverage all over the cheese. It's looking nice and blue, but that just comes off. It looks like a beautiful rock that just hangs out in the cheese cave. Nothing's happening to it. It's firm. I'm doing this once every 2 weeks, maybe even, sometimes not even that. Just brushing off some of this. So that's just how it sits. It's doing absolutely brilliantly, staying all firm. There's nothing on this one. I am super impressed with it. Hey, look what I am noticing. It is getting some cracks. So I am concerned about that. That should not be happening. This cave is at 90. Not sure what's going on. And I'm also not seeing much brown. Whoa, lots of cracks there. Unless it is underneath. Yeah, actually, it might be underneath if I scrape. I'm thinking this might soon be time to eat. I cannot stop thinking of the cracks. I've got to cut it open and see how it's doing. It makes me really nervous. We're gonna just go do it. It says the humidity is at 92.8. It should not be cracking. I'm gonna brush it out here because it is really moldy. It's almost reddish there. Oh guys, I think a helicopter's taking off over here. Look, there it goes. Anyway, back to the cheese. Let's go inside and look at this more. Now that it's cleaned up, you can see how it's a reddish color and there's still those cracks there. This actually feels a little bit sticky. I think I'm gonna wash it with a vinegar, water, salt solution to kind of like clean it up and scrub it down even more. It still smells like basement mold, but there's another smell, like maybe a little bit meaty smell. Something else is underneath there. Here's some salt brine, and then I'm gonna put a little bit of vinegar in, and that's gonna halt the mold growth. Well, let me put an apron on. I'm gonna wash this off underwater because it's so much mold, so much dirt. It feels like a rock. It is so funky feeling. It actually feels like concrete. Okay, now I'm gonna put this a little bit more on it. Technically, I should let this dry a little bit more, but I'm not going to because I don't do anything technically. I mean, it's pretty dry. It's not like whatever. This is the color brown I had expected when I added that stuff. Instead, I have more of a maroon. So I don't know what that's about, but maybe that's the mold. It still smells of basement. I expect all that's gonna get cut off. Oh, it's hard. It's really hard. It smells good inside. I'm cutting it crooked. Break. Whoa, look at that. Holy cow. Do you see? That yellow, gorgeous, yellow gorgeousness? Look at that. What? Look at that, it crumbled. It smells really good. There's a sharpness to it. It's also a bit dry, but it has a richness. I'm getting the milk flavors. Oh wow. Okay, I'm gonna taste some of the rind. Wish me luck. I got basement vibes. But it's not horrible. You take one of these little thingies and you just kind of like chip away at it and break out the cheese, like the crumbles of it, like how the fancy people do it, you know, when you do a Parmesan. So it tastes dry, but it's not a displeasing dryness. It has a lot of flavor, like richness to it. It has a nice chew, like it's firm. I wouldn't say it's creamy. It has like a butteriness. Maybe I'm just thinking that because it looks so buttery, but I think it does taste buttery. There's definitely a nice paste to it though. I'm going to vac pack this and let it continue to age and see if this doesn't over time develop crystals or do something special later, maybe in a year. So that probably won't be on this video. And I don't know what pronouncement to make on adding the mold that's supposed to make it turn brown. Like, I don't know if that made this. I kind of think it did. Like, I kind of think that is the mold, which is kind of cool. But I wonder if other cheeses now that are aging natural rind in the basement are going to have the same mold. Like maybe it has spread. We'll find out. So this is the Redneck cheddar that I made. It was in the cave at the same time as the Welsh cheddar. I don't see any red underneath yet. Nope, it's just like a green. But there is some of that brown, not much.
Welsh cheddar.
I cut off the rind, but I got really close to the rind and it tastes fine. So you only have to cut off the very edge of the rind. Now I just got a taste of rind. Take that back, maybe a little bit more than the very edge. Ooh, it looks toasty. It does no stretching at all.
It just gets really tough when you chew it.
It's not tough, it's delicious. It's toasted cheese.
When you microwave marshmallows.
When you microwave marshmallows, but it's crusty, it's gummy.
Crusty's not a good word.
I do not see any molds coming in through the cracks. Like, there's no sign of that. So those cracks apparently weren't terrible, or they just started and the mold hasn't had a chance to move in. Blue mold. This mold is coming off very thinly and very nicely as opposed to some of my other molds when I remove them. And it's not wasting much at all. This cheese is very easy to clean up, but you might want to keep it in whole pieces rather than small ones, because if it's too small, the force and the pressure of cleaning it up will make the cheese break apart a little bit because it's so crumbly. I think adding Mycodore works. This rind is definitely different than any of my other rinds. I also think that even though my cheesecake says it's like 90% humidity, 95, it's not quite enough. Either I made it too dry or there's not quite enough humidity and so cheeses are drying out. I have had cheeses sitting in there that are not drying out. It kind of matches my shirt. You'd think I would have planned that, but I didn't. And thus concludes the Welsh cheddar.